They say the desert keeps its secrets, but in Dust Creek, the earth itself seemed to whisper them back. The year was 1874, and Dust Creek was a forgotten town, a splinter on the very edge of the frontier. Most travelers gave it a wide berth, not because of bandits or the unforgiving sun, but because of the silence. It was an unnatural quiet, heavy and watchful. The streets were always empty. Yet, the saloon doors would swing on their hinges as if pushed by unseen hands, even when the air was dead still. And every night, without fail, the church bell would ring at midnight, its mournful toll echoing through the desolation, though no one ever touched the rope. One dusty evening, Sheriff Elias Crow rode into this forgotten place. He wasn't looking for ghosts. He was a practical man, a lawman on the trail of a dangerous fugitive named Silas Kane. The trail led him straight to Dust Creek, but what he found was far stranger than any outlaw. The town wasn't dead, not really. It was alive with shadows, fleeting figures that flickered at the very edge of his lantern light. Gone the moment he turned his head. Every building he entered carried the thick, choking smell of ancient dust and decay, a scent of time itself rotting away. Yet, inside the saloon, the poker tables were perfectly set, the cards fanned out as if mid-hand. Glasses sat on the bar, filled to the brim with amber, liquid that never evaporated. Rocking chairs on deserted porches moved back and forth in a gentle, rhythmic motion, as if invisible guests were still enjoying the evening air. Elias was a man who trusted his gut, and his gut screamed that something was profoundly wrong. He drew his revolver, the click of the hammer echoing unnaturally in the silence. The fugitive's trail was clear, boot prints in the thick dust leading him deeper into the town's eerie heart. The deeper Elias walked, the more the town itself seemed to wake up, to breathe around him. He began to hear things soft, sibilant whispers that seemed to rise from the very cracks in the sun-baked ground. They sounded like wind, but there was no wind. Then the whispers formed a word, his name, Elias. It was a chorus of voices, some sounding like men, some like women, some like children, all calling to him from the dark, mouths of dried up wells and the gaping windows of abandoned homes. His heart pounded against his ribs, a frantic drum against the town's silent pulse. The trail led him directly to the old, abandoned mine at the edge of town, a dark scar on the hillside. This was the place the locals in the next county had warned him, where the original townsfolk of Dust Creek had simply vanished without a trace decades ago. As he stepped into the oppressive darkness of the mine entrance, the air grew cold and heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something metallic and ancient. Inside, the rock walls weren't still. In the faint glow of his lantern, they seemed to shimmer, to pulse with a faint, deep red light like the veins of some colossal, sleeping creature, and the sound, the unmistakable, rhythmic echo of pickaxes striking stone rang through the tunnels, yet he was utterly alone. No miners remained, only the ghosts of their labor. It was then, in the suffocating dark of the mine, that the horrifying truth finally dawned on him. Dust Creek hadn't been abandoned. It had been consumed, swallowed whole by something older than the frontier, older than the mountains themselves, a primordial hunger that had been sleeping beneath the desert. The townsfolk hadn't left. They had been claimed, their very souls absorbed and bound to the dust, cursed to wander these empty streets for eternity, replaying the last moments of their lives. They were the whispers, the shadows, the unseen guests in the saloon. And now, Elias realized with a surge of cold dread, the town wanted him too. It was hungry again. The flame in the sheriff's lantern sputtered, casting long, dancing shadows that writhed like living things. Screw louder, Morin ceased, no longer just calling his name, but pleading, hissing from all around him. Stay, they beckoned. Join us. Be one with the dust. His horse, tied up outside, suddenly screamed in terror and bolted, the sound of its hooves fading into the night, leaving him completely alone. The darkness of the mine stretched before him, an endless, waiting throat. Elias felt the very ground shift beneath his boots, a subtle tremor as the entity that was Dust Creek stirred. This wasn't a place. It was a trap, a lure for the lost and the curious, and he had walked right into its jaws. As the first chime of the midnight bell tolled, resonating through the earth itself, Elias Crow turned to run. But there was nowhere to go. The dust on the ground began to swirl, rising up to meet him, its whispers turning into a deafening roar. The last thing he saw was 1,000 shadowy faces swirling in the vortex of sand, their arms outstretched. And then, as the 12th bell faded into silence, Sheriff Elias Crow vanished into the whispers, his lantern clattering to the ground, its light extinguished forever. He became just another shadow in the town that never died, another voice in the chorus of the damned. So if you ever find yourself riding west, and you see a forgotten town on the horizon where the saloon doors swing without wind, don't stop. Turn back and ride as fast as you can. Dust Creek waits for the curious, for the lonely, for the lost. And once you enter, you'll never leave. Share this tale with anyone who will listen, and warn your friends. Because the desert keeps its secrets, but Dust Creek, it keeps its souls. Thanks for listening, and remember to look over your shoulder on those long, empty roads.